Welcome back to another episode of Sound Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, everyone.
And today we're going to be reviewing We Were Soldiers from 2002. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. The story of the first major battle of the American phase of the Vietnam War and the soldiers who fought on both sides while their wives waited nervously and anxiously at home for the good news or bad news. My first pro is the cast. We have Mel Gibson, Sam Elliott, Kerry Russell, Barry Pepper, John Hamm, Clark Gregg, Brian T., just to name a few now well-known names. And let me add that Sam Elliott's acting in this movie is amazing, especially without his famous mustache, which makes him look totally different, and he still is amazing in this role. Next point is the movie is based on a true event, a first major battle in the Vietnam War that was well documented, and the message behind the movie of telling us, the viewers, of what war is really like from both sides. This movie doesn't glorify war, which I like, but instead makes us, the viewers, question if a victory really is worth it and what cost it brings to the table. Moving on to my next point, the explosions in the movie, for me, it was a breath of fresh air knowing that it was not all digitally put into the movie. These explosions were actual pyrotechnics that they used during the movie. More impactful for me was that it made the actors experience what real soldiers would actually feel during the battle. So I think it just brings an additional genuine feel to the movie for us viewers, but actually for the actors as well. My next point is the camera angles, how they use some scenes and to make you feel like you were behind the camera, ducking with the soldiers and trying to avoid getting hurt. Also, the fact that the blood splatter would fall on some lenses once in a while, that actually really made the scenes more impactful for me, especially since we were watching a movie about war and there was blood everywhere. It was just like you were there and you got splattered with it. And the fact that a reporter was there with the other soldiers able to retell these events brings it to a whole new level for me. And like I said, this movie is based on the book. And that brings me to my cons. My first con is the runtime. To tell you the truth, it could have been shorter, but if you ask me what I would have taken out, I can't really pinpoint much. There could be a scene here and there, but it wouldn't significantly reduce the movie. It actually feels that I would like to see more backstory on some soldiers that died, and I believe it's missing in the movie, this element about how we can connect to them and feel more impactful. I know there is that side story of the soldier whose baby was just born, who's married to Kerry Russell, but other than that, I saw people there dying and I was like, okay, so who's that? I would have liked a little more information since this is based on a real event. My next con is not having dates or timestamps to show how much time was passing for the soldiers in the field during the battle. For example, they could have used a simple day 1, day 2 kind of effect, or even military time to show us key points of how the battle was progressing instead of just showing us day, night footage. I think this would have helped the movie drive the message home, what these soldiers had to endure during this battle, since it did take them a few days to get rescued. Next con, the fact that they use movie stills for the reporter's pictures in the film versus the real pictures the actual reporter did take during the battle. I feel this was a huge con. They missed an opportunity here to drive the message even harder to show what the reporter saw during the battle. So they really missed that opportunity from my point of view, him telling us a bit more about what he saw. And also the point that the narrator only opens and closes the movie versus him telling us almost step by step what's going on. A little narration here and there would have been heard, maybe opening like day 1. During day 1 we did this, or day 2 this happened, or this is the time when so and so perished. I think that would have been a little more personal if it would happen like that versus just following Mel Gibson. Instead of splitting the movie between Mel Gibson's point of view and the reporter, they could have basically just used one voice to narrate the movie. I think that would have been a little more genuine. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to my friend Touly and see how he saw this movie and what grade he gave the movie.
I agree with Sal in terms of the star power in this film. A lot of recognizable names, of course, with Mel Gibson being at the top of that list, and a decent recount of the experience or dive into what happened during this particular phase of the Vietnam War. I think I say this quite often when it comes to a movie, especially war movies, where they try to depict a part of history and do it in such a manner where its biggest purpose is to shed light or honor those that were involved in such an event. When it comes to that sort of a theme, I am never gonna speak ill of it. I don't want that concept of my review to affect some of the things that I feel I liked about the film and some of the things that I didn't like about the film in terms of the artistic side. I would like to speak more on the artistic side, but I just want to present my review of the film by saying that. Yeah, Sal said that the movie is based on a book. I wasn't aware of that, and I don't know if the direction that they took this film was based heavily on this book or how much leeway they had, because it did feel that they keyed in certain scenes to really get you to feel that yes, these events did happen during the course of this phase, and that there were certain struggles that the American army were having and how they overcame those struggles, as well as, you know, capturing what happened with the wives and the family back home and how they were dealing with it. Everything just coincided with one another. But at the same time, I felt that some of these scenes could have been left out given how long the film was. I think it was a little over 2 hours. At least to me, it didn't really offer anything to the table other than, yes, just pointing out that these are situations that occur during war. And for me, the one thing that really stood out that I felt wasn't necessary, at least how they went about telling this story, how they were trying to set up these characters at the beginning before these soldiers got deployed into Vietnam, so that you as an audience would be motivated into following these characters and sort of react to them genuinely when you see what happened to them on the battlefield. I feel like maybe this was one of those films that might have been better if they just started off the film in the middle of a battle, because I think the film was trying to do too much in that regard, where, you know, they're trying to capture everything from some of these soldiers being nervous before being deployed to when some of these wives finding out about the deaths of their husbands or a friend's husband and letting each other know that this has happened to a loved one. Like, I get it, but the way they told the story, it just didn't flow right to the point where I was emotionally involved. Felt like it was just something that was added to just give you the sense that yes, these are things that do occur during war, things that were happening particularly around Mel Gibson's character, from him nearly getting shot at multiple times, and there's a scene where a bullet maybe ricocheted off of him or something, and then he turns around, takes down a few of the enemies that were trying to gun him down, and then to just know that other soldiers were taken down so easily because they were just in a standing position. To see scenes like that where they took it a little too far for me to feel like this film was supposed to have this serious tone, and I don't know if it's them trying to have this comedic aspect to the film, but I felt like, yeah, things like that I feel would have been better if they just left out. Another scene was at the onset of the battle when they were heavily attacked and they were being told to stay down, and some of the guys still kept on getting up and getting shot. I feel like something like that should have either come by second in nature or could have just not been accentuated to the point where I feel that, yeah, some of these deaths could have been avoided if they just were in the moment and not trying to take it too far. And then one more example is when one of the soldiers on the enemy line came charging in with his gun that had the blade at the end. For him to have gotten that close to Mel Gibson's character before getting taken down, again, I think they were just trying to make it seem that, you know, that was a tense moment, that maybe something bad was going to happen. But at the same time, given how that scenario turned out, completely unnecessary because it didn't lead to anything. And again, how did that guy get that close when there were so many people surrounding Mel Gibson's character? And for them to have not just have one guy looked in the vicinity that guy came charging at them from. So again, I think the movie was just trying to do too much, and because of that, certain aspects of the film didn't get implemented well enough for them to like matter. And because of that, the movie could have been shortened to maybe even 2 hours or less than 2 hours actually. I think Sal was alluding to it, but I would have preferred if the film was just told from the perspective of the reporter from start to finish, and how his recount dictated how we consumed what happened versus the movie just kind of flip-flopping between, oh, here's what happened before the battle, and then here's what happened during the battle, but then here's what's happening to the wives, and, you know, back and forth. I'm not saying that those components are not necessary, or just because you have them, they're bad. It's the way they executed those scenes. and how they set up these characters and how we're supposed to feel for them. Heck, the mini montage we got after what I think it's supposed to be like a big climax or whatever, where there was friendly fire to the American troops because bombs were being dropped and some of the Americans got caught in the fire, and then there was a montage of photos being shown to sort of capture that moment. I felt that was very out of place. I would have preferred if something like that maybe were just shown at the end of the film to sort of like honor the soldiers that were involved in that incident, or again have this be told from the perspective of the reporter so that maybe he's telling this story to somebody and then he comes back to the present and he has these photos in his hands or something. It's sort of like it naturally flows into the reasoning for showing these photos at that particular time. Again, I felt like the movie did a decent job if it was trying to just portray what happened based on how the book might have told the story, but having not read the book and just basing this on watching the film, it felt really lopsided at times, and overall I just never felt really connected to the film because when I was really into the movie, it sort of just pulled me back with how certain scenes were being handled. So yeah, I have mixed feeling about this film actually. I would say there has been other war films that again has this sort of stylistic approach to telling the story that I would prefer. I'm always going to use Saving Private Ryan, as that sort of a film. I get it. Not all films are going to be told the same way, given the director behind the film, given the actors who are present, given their script, given if the content is actually based off of something and how closely they want to keep to the content. But yeah, I feel like just have the reporter maybe go around town, maybe come across certain key characters that were involved in this event, from some of these surviving soldiers to some of the wives and family members who went through this back at home, and just have this conversation. And through these conversations, we find out what happened during parts of this phase of the Vietnam War. So I think to me, I would have been more on board if they approached it a little more stylistically, not to the point where it becomes too inorganic, because it is a film that not only captured what happened in history, but also maybe tried to entertain people at the same time. But I want some sense of flow so that I can follow, a character from point A to point B without having to think too much. And so that the film wouldn't have to rely too heavily on these dramatized moments that kind of took me out of the movie at times. So my score for this film, I would say it's a 5.5 out of 10. Again, just given the perspective that you are watching this from, if it's a recount of what happened, then I feel like the movie was fine. But in terms of some of the elements that they were trying to incorporate into this film to serve, I guess, the entertainment aspect, to give you the feel that there was tension and slowing down certain moments in the film to let the music sort of dictate how you would feel because of the sort of dramatized music also that was being used alongside some of the scenes. I feel like some of those things could have been polished a little bit more. That's where I stand.
So I was not aware that this movie was based on a book. And like Touly says, I don't know what's in the book that got put into the movie or what got left out. And I felt the same way that this movie kind of felt like it was being told by two different sources versus they should have just used one. I understand that Colonel says his point of view and the reporter says his point of view. But if it was just kept to one, also the movie's message is there. War is not pretty. And sometimes you don't even know why you're doing it. Both sides think they're in the right, like Mel Gibson's character said at the beginning when he's praying, he's saying, I'm pretty sure the other side is also asking God for victory. In that sense, is like you are always thinking you're justified and you're the one who's right and the other opponent's in the wrong. So to me, that's the message I got out of this movie. Yes, I saw that some elements, like Touly said, did not really fit. Some things were exaggerated, but at the same time, this is one of the war movies that sort of better brings this point home versus others that are more far-fetched in my point of view. So I also think that this movie could have been better if it was shortened a little more and set the story from one source versus two and just recount the story of the soldiers. So my grade's basically going to be, I want to say, a range between 6.5 to 7 out of 10. This movie is one of the better movies I've seen, but still there's other greater movies that are out there, like Touly alluded to. So yeah, my grade still stands 7 out of 10. I would actually recommend to watch this movie versus other movies that claim to be military movies are not really. They're just there for the drama. So that does it for this review of We Were Soldiers. Please join us next time when we're going to review the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Kill you! I'll kill you! Such ingratitude after all the times I've saved your life.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.